Hello, everyone. I'm Brad Taleppo, and I'm here to do my best in supporting you in saving 25% of the time and the money and over 90% of the overwhelm in how you are managing it all. Well, I just believe that time is our most precious asset. And in this moment, feeling very vulnerable coming into this particular live because I just got a call from a family member, and it really relates into why I do what I do, and I think the reason behind this. And my dad passed last year, and his birthday is coming up in a couple days, and as you know, it's also Father's Day coming up. And I had the gift of having a dad that was there. He was there for everything all the time for all of us. And I just believe in freedom. I believe that time is our most precious asset. I believe that we're here to do what we love with the people that we love as much as possible. And having that call with them just 30 minutes ago, I feel sad, but in his life, I know that there was no regret because of the freedom that he was able to create to spend time with his family. And I just truly believe that's why we're here. I believe that time's our most precious asset, that our relationships are our most precious asset, that our freedom is our most important asset. And our business and our job is not here to be stuck behind a computer. It's here to create a life that we want outside of it. And if I can just give the business owners or the entrepreneurs or the teams or the employers just 5 to 10 or even like 20 more hours per week to spend that time with things that matter most, not the money, not the sitting in front of the computer, but for why they're really here to live that life outside of it, then I've done my job. And I also had the blessing of learning entrepreneurship from a dad and him really hammering in how he got this freedom. And one of those things was systems and processes that he nailed like all the time. Like, it's not just having a lucrative business, but how can we be away from it and have it still be lucrative? And it's not just having the time that we can have a way to spend with the things and the people that we love most. It's having the presence. Like, there's no point of being away from things or being on vacation or with these people if we can't actually be with them. And I had that blessing of learning from him and then employing that into my entrepreneurship career, which started it at 22. That was 26 years ago. And finally understanding systems and processes and like time mastery and getting into it so that I could have that time and that freedom. So I hope that what I've learned, I can pass on to you. And if I can just give you a handful of hours every single week, or like 10 hours every single week, which is 500 hours a year. And if you want to split that between your business and the people that you love, and I can also give you the total presence of peace of mind that you can spend it with them, then I've done my job. And there's not a lot of things that I'm good at, but I'm really effing good at running highly efficient companies, teams, and setting up a business, a team, and a lifestyle for freedom. So now that I'm through that moment, feel free to ask me anything in the comments. It's just my second live, so if I miss anything, I do, but I'm here to ask you anything. But these are some questions that I have from people before coming into this so that I'm prepped. So I've noticed quite a few people around the real estate business or in those teams business, and this applies to everyone who have been asking questions or I have supported really quick on screen shares and what's there. And one of those things is, how do we set up a system so that it's super easy for new people to onboard? as well as to train with, because we're always hiring new people, whether if we need to cross train or if someone's quit or getting fired, or we need to scale. We need to hire 3 new people of the same thing. Well, that answer is a learning management system. And what is awesome about a learning management system is everything that's repeatable, whether if you're doing it once a day, once a week, or every time you're doing a new hire, is imagine that being out of the brain, like in some Google Docs and some videos, and it walks them through it without your time and money, walks them through it and tests them and quizzes them so that you don't need to spend that time and that energy on it. And it also becomes a single source of truth for when things go wrong. So for example, we call it errors of omission, or you ever feel like you're fighting fires. You always feel like you're doing like, why am I dealing with the same mistake like over and over and over again? Like, why aren't the employees getting this? Why does this error keep popping up? The solution to that is a learning management system. And what's awesome, they are so simple. They're crazy affordable. They're easy to get integrated, and the team ends up loving it. It's easy to keep there, and it just saves so much time and energy, not just like in the new hires, but the existing hires. And when things go wrong, you can all of a sudden patch it up, and anyone that's responsible for it, it's like, hey, we just updated this. And the next thing you know, it's automated to send out to anyone that is responsible for it to make sure that they're trained on it. So I'm going to use show a real world example so that I can actually show what's happening. So I'm going to share my screen here, and let's see if this actually goes well. Let me pop over to the LMS system and pop open to that. Cool. So for example, like a lot of people use Google Docs, and Google Docs is a great place to start collaborating on. However, it is not a good place to end for the learning management system. I want to be able to hire or cross-train one person or 1,000 just like that in the same time. So once the things become developed in the Google Docs, it's how do you get it into a learning management system that it's easy to cross-train and scale and to keep up to date. So like when you have a new company process that just improved or anything like that, it gets dropped into one place. So for example, after I've created a lot of this into a learning management system, here's an example that I drive into like email mastery. Next thing you know, imagine that you're a new employee, or imagine that your other employees going through. You can talk about the targets, and it walks them through step by step that's there. You can talk about the problem. It's easy to drop in memes and text and videos, and it's like super Sesame Street on how to walk people through it. Like this, I'm talking about email mastery. These are the problems and these are the solutions. And when you keep going through the topics one by one, and what's going to happen, the employees are learning it. And immediately afterwards, they're also going through quizzes and tests on actually how to do it, so that they're actually immediately recalling what to do and how to do it. It gets the business out of the brain into a simple tool with best practices and the routines to actually keep it together. So in summary, that learning management system and having the recurring nature of the business out of the brain, hands down, if you want to get the freedom, if you want to save a ton of time and a ton of money and all the headaches and to kill all those errors of omission, go find a learning management system. I've known 2 great ones that are there. Feel free to ask me. I'll point you in the right directions, and there's just some good ones that are there. The next question that came up is employees keep messing up, even though I keep telling them all the time what to do. It's like the same error keeps popping it up. Well, what that type of error is, it's an error of omission. An error of omission means that it's a repeatable error. So it's kind of like, you know, you have your kids or someone go do the dishes every time, and next thing you know, they keep having the error over and over and over again. You're just like, oh my gosh, why can they not get it right? Like what's actually happening? And you feel like you're managing this person. It's like, why can't I have this person get this right? Like, what is wrong? And as I've learned from my dad, it's never the person, it's the employee training and the system. If you want to get the freedom and you want to save a lot of the time and the money and the energy with how you're managing the business and the team? The answer is in the system. You go back to the clear documentation and the processes and you say, well, okay, is this right? Can you go back and follow this? Are you trained? Like it shows me that you actually went through this, that you learned it. And you could always go right back to the system every single time to say, hey, I thought you knew this. I thought you signed off on it. My understanding is that you do know this. So let's go back to the system. So you stop going through the frustration of managing the person and you go back to managing the system, because normally the gap is in the system in order for them to train them. And what is great, you do this once and then it's set up for everyone and everything. Whether if it's a new job you go to, a new client process, you got new clients coming on board, all the new trainees, new policies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're noticing that all those same errors are popping up all the time, or like the biggest headache, it's like, how often are we training new people from the brain? So therefore, so much information is getting lost. One, I don't want to be training the new person. Two, it feels like we're doing it like over and over and over again. Three, where's our single source of truth where all this can actually be documented and be in the one place so that we can actually have this system that is cross-trainable and scalable? Like, where is that? And that's where a learning management system comes back into play. And what's great about that is, I'm going to share this as well, where it gets really clear, like how to get the organization of your organization's org chart out, how to go from chaos to clear and what's all there. So let me show you another example inside of it. Is there are clear organizations and roles and people. So for example, at first, you can manage your org chart. You can get that business out of the brain in like minutes. I don't care how big your company is. You can get that out of the brain so fast. You can have clear org chart, and then you can get down to the roles and the responsibilities that are actually happening. And then the responsibilities, they have all the duties. So you can get crystal clear with those really fast to see, who needs to manage what. But to get clear on your org chart and then all of the roles, and then next thing you know, you can start developing that learning management system and get clear where everything is at. Warning, hey, if this is your first time going into a learning management system, I see this problem hit time and time and time again. And this was a support call yesterday as well. They tried to do it on their own. Find someone who is a successful role model at setting them up so that you do it right the first time. I'm telling you, it will save you so much time and headache and frustration, and you'll have to undo a lot of things that were done. When you hire the right person who's done this multiple times over successfully, you can take all of their mistakes so that you don't have to make those mistakes, and you can take all that time that you wouldn't have to waste and compress it into a fraction, and you get it implemented like that. So not only do you have all the org chart and the roles and the responsibilities, you also have like policies are into place, right? What type of new policies are coming out? Work from home, coronavirus, employee, you get it all into one place. And imagine you get a new employee that comes on, and next thing you know, they walk through it. They walk themselves through it. And if anything comes up again on where we need to go check it out, we can go check it out. The organization means everything has a place and everything in its place, so it gets centralized, and that single source of truth, you just go from like chaos and disorganized to overwhelmed to clear, organized, systematic, and very efficient. So when you go from the org chart into the roles and you get people onboarded, then you start dialing in the actual processes and the procedures. Now, the next thing that really came into play is like, well, how are we managing these people? How do we know where they are at and what's happening? So for example, I was, just turn off this for a second. I was supporting a team that is growing at like some insane amount of numbers, like some insane. It's like a 7-8 digit, like they're just like click, 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 click. And they want to be able to onboard even up to like 1 to 500 new like sales reps at a time when they're getting ready for their next business that's going to integrate their sales process. So a good system can do it in roughly like the same amount of time. It's scalable for like 50 people as it can for 5, as it can for 1. Yeah, there's like incremental like time, but it's not linear. It's not like it's going to take 5 times as much time for 5 people. It might just take like 1.2 times as much time. And then you get like 10 people on board. It just might take like 1.8 times as much time. But there's like a linear, or there's a geometric support and a growth that's there. So then what's nice about a powerful learning management system is, imagine you just brought in 1 new person or 10. You want to know where they're at. You decided you wanted to hire them. You want to know they want to be onboarded. You want to know what's happening. And hey, like this is even for things like hiring. Think about like this, even like hiring a new like cleaner, hiring a new like bathroom person, hiring a new like this person to come in and do this random duty once every single week. It's the same thing. It's such a simple process, a simple system and process to manage all your systems and processes so that you can actually keep it all together. But whether if you're hiring like 1 person or 5, I can actually see, you can see where everybody's at. So all of a sudden you can see that like John's like 5% of the way through. George is like 50% of the way through. Shelly's like 75% of the way through. And then you can see that they actually passed the test, and you get an alert right away. So you know where they're at, whether if they've read their policies, whether if it's like, hey, I want to support you with this. So for example, I have time mastery, certain components that businesses love to have after I've consulted with them. Like they want to make sure that any new employee, as well as their existing ones, are like master at their emails. They want to make sure they are master at all their inboxes. They want to make sure they're a master at getting out of their brain. They want to make sure they're a master at using the team calendar or the team project tool. Like they want to make sure that they're like a master at these different things. Well, it's just a plug and play. Like I can drop it into their learning management systems so that a new employee that comes on board goes through it. I don't need to train them. I might need like take 5% of the time that it would normally take, get them up to speed so that that new employee has the mindset as well as the education and the strategy on how to be the most efficient person ever with their organization. So now that I have that into play and I have all my things, I can plug and play that into organizations that I've consulted with, or even like new ones that I haven't. But it's super easy to see where everyone's at by subject as well as by the entire role, like with just simple reports that are there. So it just comes back to recurring, like managing that recurring nature of your company's roles and responsibilities and processes. And you just dial it in. And what's great is you do it once. Every time you do something once, it returns a radical return on investment, not only of your time, meaning you spend an hour on it once, and it's normally saving an hour a week, every single week, which is saving all the money, but it's really saving all that overwhelm and that headache in order to get there. Another question that came in, this is going to be the last question I'm going to do, is going to be like, well, how do we even map out this process anyhow? How do I even start to map out the process for getting ready for the learning management system, or how to document things and how to get these processes and these procedures into place? So let me show you a brief little diagram on that. Share the screen. So here is a very primitive example of an org chart that's here. So we have a role. We have a role. Imagine that you have a giant org chart, right? All the org charts have a role and a person and a person's name on it right here. Everything has a role. Then each one of those roles has multiple responsibilities. And normally, each role has multiple responsibilities. So you start by getting clear on the org chart and the role, and then the clear on the multiple responsibilities for that role. And then for each one of the responsibilities, you also get clear on what are the multiple duties and processes that that person needs to do to make sure that they have a responsibility that is in excellence for that role. In summary, role has multiple responsibilities And each responsibility has multiple duties and processes to make sure that nothing falls through the crack. And what's great about this is when you take your business and your job and your team, and you have the mindset like it's an airplane. And if anyone messes up, it puts the whole airplane at risk. Everyone has an important job to do so that the customer service, the plane flies right, that it can take off and land, so that we can all actually focus on what matters most. And you do this when you have that clear role and the responsibilities and the duties, so it builds the clear checklists so that we don't actually have to think about it. And that's a big part of the benefits that are here. Like, it lets you focus on what matters most, knowing what you need to do and how often, so that you can just focus on what matters most. You don't need to be distracted. So those errors of omission that are going to make the plane die, that's costing all the time, that's costing the money, really gets sealed up. So how to map this out? You can just map it out on a piece of paper, map it on the roles, responsibilities, and then the duties, and then you're off and running. But like I said before at the beginning, when you come to get ready to onboard this into a learning management system or a clear checklist, if you want to be able to do it in a fraction of the time, at a fraction of the cost, and a fraction of the headache, hire someone who knows what they're doing. I'm blessed to be a part of large groups and large other consultants, especially in the COO operatives, that are able to do this all. And this applies to like your job as well. Like, you want to become like a badass high value employee. All these principles are the same. Like, you can literally become 4x as productive, get like double the pay when you get the job like out of the brain, and you're clear with your simple tools and your best practices and routines to keep it together. And you can just start driving people. Like, I've seen people become 4 to even 8x as productive being an employee, and then being able to come back to the boss to say, well, I want the raise. And not only do I want the raise, what if I showed everyone else how to do this so that we can save all these other employee costs that are happening, right? But in the end, all these areas are easy to cover. But I would say over 80% of businesses and teams and the employees are easily wasting a minimum of 25 to 50% of the time, which is all that money, and the source of over 80% of their overwhelm, by not having these things into play. And what is awesome, they're so simple to fix. Normally 1 hour once returns 50 hours a year, 1 a week, maybe 30 hours even every single month. It is like simple, fast return on investment. And then it allows you to spend the time on what matters most, not only on high value activities inside the business or the team or the job, but back to where we started in this live in the first place, back to actually being away, to actually being on vacation and be able to be on vacation, actually being able to fly home to be with your loved ones, actually be able to spend your time with your husband and your kids, to be able to go home early, to take the Wednesday off, to take the extra weeks off, and still have the trust and confidence that everything is into play. That everything's into play. So those are the summaries. I'm going to wrap this up. You can ask me anything in these comments, and I will answer. Every Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern, going live here, where you can show up and ask us anything. You can even ask me anything beforehand, and I will cover it. And back to just, I'm a firm believer in freedom of our time, of our location, and of our mind. And that time is our most precious asset. And we are here on this earth to spend as much time with the people that we love, doing what we love, and not in front of some computer, not in front of something. Money's great. It matters. It's important to a business. Yes, and both can be done. I'll also drop, if you'd love a free diagnosis, I'm happy to run through that. It only takes me 15 minutes. I'll drop in a comment on where you can fill out a free form, and it lets me get a quick diagnosis on where your opportunities might where they might be, and we can save you time and energy really, 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 really fast. I hope this was valuable, and happy Thursday.